Hello everyone, Valiant here, and I'm coming to you with a bit of tips and tricks for the normal mode. Now that it's hit live servers and we've gotten a better idea of what's going on exactly, and I have found out that the Loki fight and area is restricted to hard mode for some reason. I thought that there was a normal mode version of it. Apparently it's all in hard mode. So I will be coming out with a hard mode guide very soon. But for now, I just wanted to go over some additional tips and tricks for these fights and when you're first starting out, stuff like that. Along with, at the end of this video, I will also be going over the exact numbers and a bit more in detail of the mechanics of the first two bosses, or basically the normal mode bosses, so that everyone is clear on them. I don't think I put them forward quite as cleanly as I would have wanted to in the first video. So I will be linking the first guide in the description for those of you who do want to see that first. Feel free. And for the people who came from that video to here, because I will link it there as well, welcome. And we're gonna go over some tips and tricks. You may have noticed I might repeat myself from the last video a bit in some cases, but for the most part, these are things that I either completely neglected to mention or are things that I found out since. So, let's get started with this. Here's a trick for when you're doing this with little to no items, dealing with the wolves. What you want to do is bait them, go to the left slightly, you dodge it. Easy. Next up, here's a way to save some trouble early on if you don't have many items, and someone has a dash or jump. They can simply bait the enemies through here, and they will all die to the bridge. Here's another place coming up here where you can do the same thing as there, just basically bait the enemies over the falling bridge, and they will all die. It's a fairly easy one. Just be careful that your allies don't follow you across the bridge, or else you could have some problems. Here's a trick that works exclusively for Baka. You can actually eat the minions from the ice blocks, surprisingly. It's a neat little trick, doesn't necessarily help you excessively. It can lower the number of enemies you face early on, so in that regards, it's good. If you really want to take the time to do it, you can actually eat every single minion. This is probably the most impactful trick because it has to do with a boss fight. It's a bit of an exploit with AMC. As long as you have one tier 1 movement speed item, you can outrun the boss infinitely and just keep throwing down your honey. Now there is a catch to this. He must be in his final phase, so this must be after the whirlpool phase. So as long as your team can make it up to the whirlpool phase and you are still alive, you can pretty much guarantee yourself a win. You can bait the board to kill himself if you've got an escape. You can body block the minions in the boiler room so that they don't come with you when the lava comes, so that they'll burn up instead. This can save you trouble on the next phase every time, because then you don't have to fight them at the beginning of the next phase. So, guys, I hope some of those tricks help you out in those very specific situations. I know they're kind of random, and many of them probably most of you know already if you've been playing the mode. The AMC one I think is probably the least known and probably the most useful overall if you're really trying to beat that first boss and you have limited items. That can really help out in that final phase. But anyways, we're gonna get into the exact boss mechanics again now, and before you think that I'm repeating myself from the last guide, this time I've got the exact details of the boss nicely on a slide for you so that you can see exactly where everything is and you can refer to it if you so desire. Alright, so with the first boss, the Draugr, we've got 4 phases with this boss, which is surprisingly more phases than the second boss has. With the Draugr, we've got phase 1, which is 32,000 HP to 16,000 HP, or otherwise 50%, basically from 100 to 50%. At this point, he's going to do an attack progression of 3 autos and then a pull line attack that will knock everyone slightly towards him. Unless you're right in front of him, in which case it'll knock you behind him. He will repeat that pattern repeatedly, pretty much until you drop into 16,000 HP. He will repeat that pattern non-stop. It is a very straightforward pattern. You need to block the seaweed, understandably, from healing him. And one other thing is he will break this attack progression if too many players are crowding him. He will do the seaweed spin AoE attack instead, so you do need to be careful of that. During phase 2, he will jump up at 16,000 HP, he will become untargetable, and basically turns into a giant on the side of the boat, and you'll have to destroy his fingers that come up on the side of the boat. Waves will pass by about every 12 seconds from what I was counting, and you'll have to dodge them. There is one open place in each wave that you can find to dodge them. After each finger is destroyed, there's a massive roar that deals unavoidable damage to the entire party. You can... What was pointed out in the previous video that I neglected to mention is that you can drop all of the fingers to really low HP and then destroy them all simultaneously to only suffer one roar for the party, which is extremely beneficial, and that is a strategy I would highly recommend you do. Otherwise, it stresses out your healer. On phase 3, it is exactly the same as phase 1. From what I could tell, there was literally no difference in his attack patterns. You just have to drop him another 25% of his HP, in essence, from 16,000 to 8,000 HP. By the way, these HP numbers, I can say these numbers with 99% certainty because after every time I saw, he dropped pretty much consistently at these numbers. I can say with great certainty these are the numbers. And at phase 4, when he hits 8,000 HP, this is when you want to get as far away from him as possible, because he will, at the start of this phase, channel Whirlpool. This Whirlpool is very large. You can completely avoid it if you are all the way in the front or all the way in the back of the ship. And even if you don't completely avoid it, you will still take extremely reduced damage. As long as you are not right next to him where it deals the most damage, you're probably gonna be fine. And once he has finished channeling the Whirlpool, you can go in on him, and the only thing that changes is he no longer does the pull line attack. Instead, what he will do is, wall. He brings up 2 walls and crushes them together, and any players caught in it are CC'd and dealt significant damage to. It's pretty easy to dodge that simply by kiting him in melee range, surprisingly. You do still have to watch out for the seaweed spin, so ranged characters want to stay far enough away so they can avoid the walls, and melee characters just want to run circles on him, literally. So that should take care of Draugr. By the way, in case any of you are wondering what the fight actually looks like, I won't be putting that here, but it will still be... You can look at the fight in my previous guide if you would like to see what it looks like. And I will most likely be showing the fight also in my hard mode guide. There are a few differences in hard mode, but very negligible differences. I will go over them in my hard mode guide video. But anyways, on to Surtr here. With Surtr, pretty much he's actually more straightforward than Draugr because he's very much just know his attack patterns and try your best to dodge the deadly things, basically. It is more of a tank and spank fight in many respects. There are a few things to watch out for, but he only has 3 phases, really, that I could tell. I'm not really counting his center blasts as phases because they're very consistent and they kind of close out phases and act as intermediaries. So first, in phase 1, he starts out with 56,000 HP, and you have to drop him to 39,000 HP. I am fairly certain on this number, however, it might be 40,000 HP. I might be wrong. I think it's 39,000 HP. From most of the footage I got from it, I'm pretty sure that's the number. But basically, during this first phase, he does 5 auto attacks. then he summons 2 lava pools, one of them under himself and one of them under one of your allies or yourself. I haven't seen any pattern to which person he targets with the lava pools specifically. It might be the lowest health player or the highest damage player. I'm not sure. It might just be random. I suspect it's random, but I'm not entirely sure on that one. I haven't seen enough evidence in either direction. Anyways, then after those 2 lava pools, he does another 5 auto attacks, and then he does 8 ranged blasts. These come in rapid succession, and he will target, I believe, the nearest god to him with those ranged blasts. So when you are trying to dodge those, it's easier to do it if you're at a distance. Just be aware that if one of your front lines tries to move away to dodge a ranged blast, he might retarget on one of the ranged characters. So do be aware of that. They are relatively easy to dodge. Just do a bit of standard smite juking and you should be fine. Then he goes into the center at 39,000 HP, and he will do these center blasts, which are very easy to dodge, as you would have seen in my previous guide video. You basically just go as far back to the edge wall as possible, and then look for an open spot, and then just move slightly to the left after each wave of blasts passes you. That way you will always make sure you stay in that empty spot. Once he's done those, in his second phase, it's very similar to the first phase, except you'll notice basically with all these phases, they stay very similar. He just swaps one of his special attacks. So he does his 5 auto attacks. He does 2 lava pools again. He does 5 auto attacks, but then he does this star slam. Now, it sounds weird to be hearing it like this, but if you when you see what it looks like, you'll know what I mean. He basically does a fire giant slam, which makes a line and knocks up anyone who's standing in there for too long and deals damage over time. But basically, he does this in a massive star pattern, which emanates from a center point, a center lava pool almost sort of thing. Now, there's 2 ways to really counter this. Probably the easiest way is try to juke out of it and hopefully not be in one of the lines when he actually lands it. Another way is if you've got a dash or a jump, go through him. If he's facing you, you want to go through him. That way you can avoid the majority of the damage, and you likely will not be on a line if you do it properly. This is probably the best way to deal with it, in my opinion, but it's only really an effective method if he is facing you at the time. If he is not facing you at the time, it's a lot harder. Usually, I would say the easiest place to avoid getting hit by that is to be directly behind him. Because I've noticed that the largest angle between the lines is directly behind him. So if you are directly behind him during that Star Slam, you will most likely be perfectly fine. So that's pretty straightforward overall. You drop him to 22,000 HP is the next threshold from what I could tell. And he'll go back to the center, same deal with the center blasts, just back up, dodge them, go to the left slightly, dodge all of them. I think it's 3 waves, I believe, of center blasts. It might have been 4. But yeah, basically you want to dodge them until they end, and then you can go back in on him. On this last phase, now what you do need to be aware of is he will be a bit tricky here. Instead of doing 5 autos at the start, he will do only 2 autos. I have seen this consistently, so I'm almost certain this is the case in every respect. He will do only 2 autos, and then he will do his spin attack. This spin attack you cannot try and tank. I would not recommend it by any means. Unless you have some serious lifesteal, I would not recommend tanking it. Because the spin attack cannot be mitigated by any damage reduction or by any protections, because it is true damage. It is straight true damage on the spin attack. So just make sure you have your escape at the end of those center blasts to be able to get out of his spin attack if possible. And if you don't have an escape, make sure he's not targeting you right after the center blasts, or else you're in big trouble. Now, I have seen once or twice, instead of doing a spin attack after 2 autos, he would do 2 lava pools, but usually he does the spin attack, I've noticed. So don't count on him doing the lava pools. If he does do the lava pools, that's better for you, because then he goes into the progression of 5 autos, 2 lava pools, 5 autos, spin attack. If he does 2 lava pools before, then he'll do the spin attack, where the 2 lava pools are there, you see. Basically, it'll be a repeated cycle. With 5 autos, 2 lava pools, 5 autos, spin attack. Just be extremely careful about the spin attack. You do not want to be near him when he does that spin attack. It does do true damage, and I have learned this the hard way many times. So usually you can burst him down before he gets 2 or 3 spin attacks off. Preferably, you burst him down before that, or else it's gonna be a rough fight. But yeah, that's how Surtr works. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I hope this was informative. I hope this helps you guys out a bit. This was just a bit of additional information to tag on to the main guide. As I said a few times in this video, I will link it in the description. So if you want to see what the fights actually look like, you can check that out. That is the entirety of normal mode, as I have now discovered, and I will be coming out with the hard mode as soon as I can. Pretty much not too long after I beat it for the first time, I will definitely come out with the guide for it. I'm fairly close to it, so I would expect to see the guide coming up soon. So if you want to see when that comes out, just please subscribe. If you think I missed anything significant, please let me know in the comments. Please let me know of any other questions you've got in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them as quickly as I can. And I hope you all enjoyed the video. Until next time, farewell.